All right, everybody, away we go. It is Friday, December the 1st. Can you believe that, of 2017? This is the TRC sales training call, which I'm always excited to do. And I know it's the holidays, from Thanksgiving to Christmas and beyond to New Year's, etc., whatever you're celebrating. I know you get a little bit lazy, so I'm coming in hot today. Don't get lazy right now. Over the next 30 days is the most important time to set yourself up correctly for January 1. You're already a little bit late. How about that? Behind me up on the board is a whiteboard exercise that I've gone through a couple times with a couple of our groups and got it going here about setting that goal. And before we get started in all the role play that we typically go through in a sales training call, I want to say it is absolutely critical that you pay attention to writing down a revenue goal. And I want it to be reasonable. And the way that you do that is you go choose where in the marketplace do you really, really want to do business. Look at the average sale, take a guesstimate on the average commission, and divide, right? Just take the number of transactions that you need into that revenue number. And there it is. It's in front of you. Then throughout the year, you don't keep saying to yourself, well, time management was so difficult. No, it's really not. The clearer the financial goal is that you're trying to get to, the simpler you see that all you have to do is act as if you are average, which you better not be. You better be above average, and go after those numbers tenaciously, okay? And always course correcting throughout the year. And what you'll find is that subconsciously and consciously you get there. So again, to reiterate, write down a revenue number, just like this one. If you're watching me on Facebook as well, just like this one on the board, 100K at a 10K average commission, around a 450K average sale, you're going to find out that you need 10 sides. And is it really difficult to do 10 sides? No, if you're planned out. Yes, if you're not planned out. Okay? All right. I'm going to go out there and Chris, I know you wanted to chat right away about role playing for Vulcan 7 leads, AKA expired. So when I open up the microphones, let's get right after it. Okay? So, here we go. Chris, let's go. You're in the hot seat, buddy. Tell me how you want to do this.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. Josh and Charlene are trailing along. They
Okay.
Finish up a bunch with the client.
Yep, cool. All right, guys. By the way, guys, remember *7 mute your mic, *6 mute your mic, *7 unmutes it. So just try to. I want to keep all the mics in your control. So please be cognizant of that. All right. So go ahead. I mean, if they're trailing along, I can't wait because I got a hot seat for 60 minutes. So let's get going. Tell me a little bit about what you want to start with. What is your concern about that part of the process? What to say to a FSBO, how to open it up. Let's start with your thoughts first, and then we'll get into the training part of it.
Yeah, good. So we're going to pull the trigger on Monday on Vulcan 7.
Yep.
We've got all of the collateral in order from MRG. Kind of made us all the seller course stuff. Everything is ready to go. I've sent everything to online prints.
Okay.
Just waiting for everything to come in the mail. So
Okay.
we're going to pull the trigger.
Okay.
And we want to take a stab at over the last 30 days in our Lake Norman market. There are 31 expired.
Okay.
So not a hell of a lot, but there's
that's a lot though.
Out there for everybody.
Yeah, but for a hot market, that's a lot, and that's over the last 30 days. So your run rate in Lake Norman itself is what, one a week?
Well, one a day.
I'm sorry, one a day.
30 days,
Yeah, that's a lot. You know why? Somebody's getting those and you're not. So to me, that's plenty. I think that's the most important thing to recognize. That's a lot. So we want to make sure that you're paying attention to going after your unfair share of them, as we like to say, right? So let's talk about what the concern is.
Yeah.
Give me the narrative first.
Yeah, so we just want to make sure that we're remaining consistent with what everybody else is doing in the group here. That seems to be working for them. We want to be consistent with the pitch, the offer, and just get kind of back up to speed on what to say.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start off the bat here. Look, okay. So I'll call you, and you'll be. We'll go slow. We're not looking for a fast pace here. We'll just go slowly, and we'll make sure that we have some idea of the components of what I believe a phone call looks like. And I'll say components, Chris, because I don't want it to feel too scripted in this narrative piece of it, right? Otherwise, all of a sudden, now you're getting all stuck and, weird, and we don't want to sound weird. We want to sound normal, right? And like it's a conversational piece. So here we go. Ring, ring. Hello, is Chris there, please?
This is Chris.
Hey, Chris, this is Danny Griffin calling from Griffin Realty Group. The reason I'm calling is because I saw that your property expired in the multiple listing service, so I thought I ought to send you out our free home seller course that'll give you a little bit of guidance. Now, I don't know whether you took it off intentionally or it's something that went astray, but either way, I think this course will help you. So I want to give you a heads up that it's coming in the mail.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, good. Was it something that you did take off the market intentionally, Chris?
No, it's our listing ran out, and we're not quite sure what we're going to do going forward.
Yeah. Did you still want to sell the property?
Yes. Yeah, we still want to sell it. We just don't know what to do right now.
Okay. Why do you think it didn't sell the first time?
It's a pretty hot market here. Everybody keeps saying, that listings are selling quick.
Yeah.
Our price point, I think we're priced right. And I just think that the right person didn't come along.
Yeah. Did you have any traffic at all, Chris?
Gosh, how am I supposed to answer this? Yeah, we had 120 days we were on the market. We had 16 showings.
Yeah, that's a lot. Anybody come back for a second time or anybody write an offer? The reason I'm asking this, Chris, is because it sounds like you got relatively close to a deal. 16 showings, 120 days for this marketplace is a little bit long, that's for sure. So I agree with you. But out of those 16, I mean, anybody come back a second time? Anybody take a shot at writing an offer? Any action at all?
No, we didn't have any offers at all.
Okay.
A couple, I think, second showings.
Yeah.
So we don't have too many details on that.
Okay. So was the communication lacking a little bit between you and the realtor? I mean, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to expect. We were notified when there was a showing, and we got the electronic feedback. Mm-hmm. And that's about all we got.
Yeah. Okay. Well, a little frustrating, to hear that for you, because I'll tell you what, I think ultimately, if you don't know, as part of a strategic approach, look, I take a professional strategic approach. So what's coming in the mail to you, Chris, is my strategy. We call it our home seller course, but if you look at it when you get it, there's 7 bullet points. You got pretty far around the wheel, almost towards success. So in other words, it sounds like you were relatively close in the right pricing range. It sounds like the condition of the property and the way it was set up would have been good enough for the marketing to work to get people to the house. But that's the stage that you're talking about, communication. See, you really need that feedback so that if there were adjustments that you could make or wanted to make, then you need to hear that. So did anybody tell you the price was too high? Did anybody tell you it wasn't enough features? Did you get any feedback whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, everybody pretty much said the price was too high, but it's a hot market, so we figured we'd need to keep it higher. Are you calling me because you want to list my property?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're talking about going back on the market, you better believe I'm looking to list your property. You better believe it, because it is a hot market, and it sounds like you got really close. So if you're considering going back on the market, because you sound a little bit lost as to what you will or will not do, but if you're telling me your motivation is somewhere around a 9 to 10 to still sell this property, I want to compete for the job, Chris. Absolutely. Don't let me pull the punch. What I'm actually trying to do right now, though, is help you figure out what went wrong. See, most people don't take a strategic approach to this. I'm very strategic. So I would call it an autopsy because something didn't happen here. So I'm trying to figure out how far you got. Now, if the feedback was the price, it might not be that you had to make a big price change, but it's pretty sensitive even though we're in a good market. Does that make sense, Chris?
A little bit.
Okay.
We were told we should start high.
Yeah.
Because there isn't much competition or much inventory out there, but I really don't want to make an adjustment.
Yeah. Is there something in your head that says you have to make an adjustment? I mean, did anybody go over the math with you? I mean, what you walk away with, I'm assuming, is the most important thing to you versus what you're asking. But really, I should have asked up front, why are you making this move altogether? What's the motivation to do it?
Yeah, we're upgrading, but it seems like everybody wants to jump in and start talking about price as the first thing here. And I'm telling you right now, I want $700 for this place.
Yeah, that's actually not what I'm talking about. I told you I have 7. Yeah, Chris, I'm not talking about that first. If you recall, what I said is I sent you a free gift in the mail of my strategy. You can take that and take a look at all 7 steps. They all intertwine. Price is just one of them. You actually got beyond that, Chris. I don't know that you have a big pricing problem, so I wouldn't assume that. With 16 showings and even a couple that you think were second showings, something's wrong at the communication stage. You're well beyond pricing at that point. Maybe a little tweak could be recommended on the price. Doesn't sound like that's the problem, though. So I don't want to put you in a defensive position. Most people lock into a price. I get it. Are you staying in the area or moving out?
No, we're going to stay here at the lake.
Okay, great. So this is an upgrade, downsize. What are you trying to do mathematically here?
Yeah, we want to get, we want to get the most out of this place for 20% down on a lake house. Be a smaller house, but similar price point.
Okay. Have you looked at houses that you would move into? I mean, are you comfortable with those selling prices?
Okay.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of the problem, that a lot of agents don't sit down with sellers and actually go over the entire mathematical issue. Because the reason why most people, in my experience, at least Chris, I don't want to put you on the defensive again about price, but in my experience, most people pick a listing price because they've done some sort of math to see what they would walk away with so that they have that 20% to the next property. If you really just sat down to look at some of the properties that you would go to and what they actually sold for, and then go through a real thorough net sheet, I think the math becomes a little bit clearer for you, right? So I think that's one of the most important steps that we could go through. Look, it's free, it's no obligation. I'm only aggressive if there's an opportunity here, but I'm also more so just trying to help. Did anybody ever go through a net sheet with you and or show you true sold prices of what you could buy on the lake? Or what the money bought?
I watch, Zillow and Realtor.com. I'm pretty familiar with the market. And as far as a net sheet goes, it's pretty simple math. I owe about $610,000.
Okay.
So I really need to be at 7 by the time I pay the 5% commission to an agent here.
Okay. So you were hoping to get, the price of the property that you're looking for, you're looking 4s, 5s, because I'm just doing the quick math in my head. Looks like to get the 20% down that you're trying to achieve somewhere around a net of $80,000 to $100,000. Is that fair?
Yeah, we'll purchase in the same price point, like right around 7.
Okay. So you want to go back to 7. So you're really looking for about $140,000 down. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we got some cash to play with here.
Yeah, good. Okay, cool. It sounds like you're pretty close to me, Chris. And again, if you're still motivated to sell, which it sounds like you are, I'd love to come in and take a look at the property and just go through the 7 steps that we have and just try to figure this out. But I think you got close. I'm just sort of scratching my head why you're expired if there were 16 showings and a couple double showings. So, it's a point where even though our market is good, my feeling is that the fish aren't going to jump in the boat. So at that point in time, somebody should have been a little bit more aggressive and try to get those people locked in. So I don't know if that's the way you feel about it or that's the way you're thinking about it, but I'd love a chance to view the property. Would that be possible? Would you mind if I came over?
What's your name again?
Sure, Danny Griffin from Griffin Realty Group. If you want to take a look at the website and see what we do with our featured properties, it's thegriffin.co.
Okay. So you've sold in the peninsula before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is where we make our living. And in fact, I live in the area too. So I know it very well. Our office is here, and this is something we've done. So if you wanted to, if you want to go to our website and just take a look at how we feature properties, you get a little bit of a feeling for the marketing. But like I said, what I sent you already, that's in the mail. So one way or another, that's coming. All I'm suggesting is I could certainly come over and discuss that because that's the general strategy, Chris. We take a strategic professional approach, which I think matters, and it's a proven approach. I'm not saying I sell every single one of the properties I like because oftentimes we can only achieve of market value that sometimes the seller, it's not enough for them to move on. That may very well end up being your case, I suppose, but it doesn't sound like it. Sounds like you were really super close to getting home on this thing. So what I would say is if I come over, it's much easier for me to see the physical product and analyze the features as if it's never been for sale. And I'll tell you what, Chris, I'm not the type of guy that pulls punches. When I come over and take a look at the house, if I think there's something wrong, I'll tell you. At least you'll have a forthright and honest second opinion. That make sense?
All right, cool.
All right, great.
Cool. I'll take a look at the stuff that you said is coming in the mail.
Super.
We'll take it from there.
Awesome. Okay, if I call you back on Monday to review it?
Make it Tuesday.
Okay, sounds perfect. Is there a better time of day? Mornings, evenings?
No.
Okay, great.
Morning's good.
Okay, great. I'll hit you then. Thanks for your time, Chris. I appreciate you listening to me, and we'll talk on Tuesday again. All right, so let's go back and talk about it. I like the role that you played. You weren't easy, and that made it feel real to me, right? You made me feel like I wanted to get in there with you and gear it up a little bit. So I like the role play that you played, you know? So let's go back and talk about this. Do you feel like that would be a typical kind of call?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about it ahead of time, but I tried to make it kind of feel like that.
Yeah. And again, well, what I liked about it is I think that you went in there and you tried to make it real, and real has to do like sort of like, well, wait a minute, who are you again? Because remember, I'm interrupting you, and if my brand is not some massive global brand, there's a high likelihood that this guy is agitated. Okay, so he's the hero of the story, and his problem is he expired. Okay, that's his problem. So sometimes when you're coming in as the guide, you're interrupting. Who are you? Like, unless I'm wearing, a doctor's vest and a name tag and have a stethoscope around my neck. That's why they do that on TV, Chris. I'm trying to insert myself into this situation as an expert where this guy may or may not understand who I am. So it's understandable that he would be a little agitated that I'm bringing up his pain expired. And who am I to do so? So I have a very short window of time to fight for a foothold where I can convince him that I'm a pro, right? And so you see now why I think having that material, and again, over the years, it's been called, a bunch of different things in my world, the bomb or this thing or that thing, whatever it is a thing of value. And that thing of value has to set the stage for this consistency of this conversation I'm about to have with this guy. Saying, look, what's coming to you is, yes, who I am, but more importantly, it's the plan. You see, I'm a guide with a plan. I think there's a lot of guides out there, but I don't think they have a plan like this one, or any plan for that matter. So whether you're going to use me or not, I think you need this. Since you didn't take the property off intentionally and it actually did expire, you need to consider this, right?
The car wash.
That's what you need to do, right? So you go in there and you try to make that case that this is a strategic approach. So that's why when you said in the beginning, look, we finally got the materials, this is why I think a lot of people do not pursue listings, is because they really don't know what to say. It feels like so much more work, doesn't it, Chris? Right? Without that thing, it feels like I have to be so scripted. But you noticed, after the introduction, I didn't feel that pressure to have to really lean into this guy with scripting. Hey, Chris, it's Danny Griffin calling from Griffin Realty Group. And the reason I'm calling, interrupting your life, is because I noticed on MLS that you expired. Now, I don't know whether that happened intentionally or unintentionally, and it's a failed situation. Either way, I just want you to know that I sent you my plan. It's a guide that goes over the home selling process so you can look at what just happened to you and figure out if one of those things is a little off whack. Hey, by the way, while I have you, are you still wanting to sell this property, right? Versus, I've heard scripts, Chris, where somebody walks right through the front door on the call and they simply say, hey, it's Danny Griffin calling from Griffin Realty Group, wondering if you still want to sell the property that just expired, right? There's nothing in it for them. It is purely an interruption. I know a lot of those people are successful because they're the only ones that are tenacious enough to get in there and keep them talking until they calm down. That is a technique that's taught, and it to a certain extent, it will work. But feel how much more fluid it is when you hear that aggression in my voice, right? Are you calling me to list the property? Yes, absolutely. If you're going to ask me that question explicitly, I'm not going to, yes. Do I have a chance? Because if I do, I'll be over this afternoon. I'll be over tomorrow morning. If I have a chance to list your house because you're going to interview new agents, you better believe I want to list your house. Now, in the meantime, I've already taken that chance of sending you my plan in advance. Whether I win the job or not, I'm going to give you that free gift of insight. of years of insight of coming up with a plan. It just makes that confidence level so much higher because I'm not relying on words. I'm relying on the plan, which in this case, there's a physical manifestation of the plan in the form of the gift. Right? Questions about that?
Yeah.
Questions, thoughts?
Me or anybody else?
Well, you, Charlene, and Josh, if they're on now.
Josh,
I'm here.
are you here?
Yeah, guys, go.
Okay, cool.
Guys, go ahead. Let me know what you
Sorry, I
think.
just came in.
All good. You just heard what I said about being dealing with expireds because you guys are going to go after them. So the premise of this whole thing was Chris wanted me to go over, quote unquote, the script. But I think the most scripted part is in the beginning because that's when you're interrupting somebody's life. So you're inserting yourself, Charlene, into the story brand, right? This is the story. This is what happens. The hero of the story or the protagonist, the main character, is the expired listing person. The problem is the actual fact that this listing expired. Now, they may or may not be able to articulate their problem. So when you hear concepts of, I'm going to agitate the pain, in marketing, that's typically what we're doing. And so think about the implications of that. The minute you begin to talk about their pain, it brings it back to the surface. It's like therapy. Hey, I saw that you expired. Ugh, do we really have to talk about this? So there's a high likelihood that they're going to become agitated with you for bringing that up. And that's why I think it becomes really, really important to step in there very quickly at that moment in time and let them know that, but I sent you my plan. I sent it. You have no choice. I know you need it. It's like a life preserver. You might be swearing at me while you're drowning. You might be mad at me for calling, but I still sent you the life preserver. Even if the realtor's your sister, your best friend, and you're going back with them, good. Use the plan. It will help. And it will help you figure out what didn't go right the first time. Now, after that, I stop talking. Because what he does is he starts to get into the conversation. So I think there's two beats. One is the introduction and the softening of the situation by saying, I know you got a little bit of a pain, so I sent you something that will help. Who are you? I'm your guide. What'd you send me? My plan. That's it. Two beats. You're this guy. You have this pain. I'm inserting myself as a guide. There's no cost, no obligation, and I'm giving you my plan. Just those beats, guys. Because the rest of it, so if there's something that's scripted, it's the way. But if you get into trying to memorize specific lines and things like that, it gets all this staccato feeling to it, and things get weird fast. Right? So if you'll remember in the back of your head, you're following this plan. Here's who they are. Here's what their pain is. Agitate it, clarify it, sure, whatever you have to do, and then step in at that same time as the guide. Hey, I know this went wrong. Typically, I find out it's one of these 7 things. So what I sent you is my plan. And breathe. Let them talk. That makes sense, Charlene?
Yeah, it does. Makes
Okay.
perfect sense.
Yeah. And then once
Hey,
they...
Danny,
Yeah, go ahead, Chris. Come on.
I know you have. Go ahead.
Go, Chris. Come on.
I was going to say, do you have time to do a quick role play call with Charlene?
Absolutely.
Just now.
Absolutely, right? Charlene, I'm calling you for expired. You can play any kind of character that you want. Be reasonable in your softness or hardness towards your approach so that we get somewhere. That's all I ask. Like, keep it somewhere in the middle, but you play the one that you think you need to train for, that personality type, okay? So here we go. Ring, ring.
Okay. Hello?
Hi, is this Charlene?
It is. Who's this?
Hey, Charlene, Danny Griffin calling from Griffin Realty Group. The reason I'm interrupting you today is because I saw that your listing expired in the MLS. I just want to give you a heads up that I sent you out my free plan that goes over the strategy I use to sell houses. I'm not sure whether you took it off intentionally or if something went awry, but either way, I think this plan will help you. So I just want to give you a heads up it's coming. Is that okay?
Who did you say you were?
Sure, Danny Griffin from Griffin Realty Group. And we're located here in Lake Norman, right down the street from where your house is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is the house that just expired, is that something you took off intentionally, Charlene? or something that there was a problem and you couldn't get it sold?
It just didn't sell. I'm not really quite sure what the problem was.
Yeah. How'd it go? I mean,
I'm listing it back though with the same agent.
oh, you are? You're going to go back with the same agent? Have you already committed to that?
Just through some communication. We haven't re-signed anything yet.
Okay. All I would ask is if there's an opportunity to consider an alternative. I've already put this in the mail. It should be there either today or tomorrow. It's a 7-point strategic plan that I think makes us very different from the other agents. So I don't know whether there's going to be adjustments made when you go back on the market. But before you do, whether you use me or not, I'm suggesting you take a look at this strategic plan. So, and again, of course, if there is an opportunity, I'd love to try to come in and at least be plan B if something doesn't go right. So I don't know if you're planning on interviewing other agents or you even thought about it. Is there an opportunity for us to maybe talk?
Possibly. I mean, what is it that makes you different than the other agents? What would you do differently on my listing?
Sure. I'm glad you asked. What we do is we take a strategic approach, meaning what? We have a very clear, proven plan that we've followed for years that we continue to tweak. I'm sure your agent's a nice person and did what they did, but obviously the plan wasn't good enough to get it sold. So something's off. That happens to me too, Charlene. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen to me, but there's a plan in place and it has 7 steps to it, not the least of which is I focus first on the price range to see where the potential sale price could fall. Nobody has a crystal ball, so nobody knows the exact magic number. But you can move up the ladder of price by doing low to no cost conditioning, which is phase 2, moving furniture around or hiring a stager. All that's done before any kind of marketing. And there's 2 types of marketing that get done. One is syndication and the other is push marketing. So one of the real points that we have different from others is that we take an approach to marketing we call push marketing. We're not just going to sit there and hopefully Zillow or Redfin or Trulia gets a buyer or co-brokes for that matter. We have a very aggressive approach online once we have that digital footprint. And then of course, that leads to the market making where communication is happening. People are coming and going through the house and we make adjustments so we can get into negotiation and close it. So those are the 7 points that you're going to get the booklet on. How far did you get in that process? I mean, did you get activity? Did you get offers? Were you that far down the line or did that not happen for you?
We didn't get any offers. We had some decent activity, but that was about it.
Good. Any second showings?
1.
Yeah, good. And what happened there? Any feedback as to why it didn't come together?
They said they were between that house and another house in our neighborhood and went with the other house, apparently.
Yeah. Do you know what address the other house was? So do you know what you lost out to?
Yes.
Okay. Was it same price, higher, lower? What was the difference?
It was a bigger lot and a little bit bigger price.
I got it. Interesting. So you came close. I mean, that's pretty good. So again, the best market making is when you have a couple of people interested. It's tough to only have one because then you're really up against the other product like that. Whereas if you can have multiple buyers attracted, you're better off. And in my case, my experience, I see that if I can even get 2 of those people working against each other to bid for the house, it really helps. So I think this is more so about market making, and to reiterate what makes us unique, we believe that a clear strategic approach creates a better opportunity for multiple buyers. So what I'd be doing is if I got an opportunity to come in and compete for the job, I'd slowly walk through those 7 points as I'm in the house, looking at it, looking at the comparables, and seeing exactly and precisely what perhaps you're losing out to. So again, the worst thing that will happen if I get invited in to compete, you'll have a little bit of a deeper understanding of a strategic approach. That sound like it might be helpful?
Yeah, actually, I think that's something we could potentially be interested in.
Okay, great. Easy enough to book the appointment now or wait till the material comes to you, whatever you feel most comfortable with.
Probably wait till the material comes to me so my husband can look it over as well.
Absolutely. Sounds fair. All I ask is that if he has questions, before me getting invited over, I'm happy to do a phone consultation with him just the way I did it with you. I wouldn't want there to be somebody just reads this and tries to interpret it without me. So if he has questions before a physical appointment, I'm happy to chat with him on the phone. So my anticipation is you'll get this booklet within the next 48 hours or so. So I'll give a call back to make sure, number one, it arrives, and to see if there's over the phone questions for your husband. Would that help?
Yeah, that would be okay.
Okay, great. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to you getting the book, and I'll follow up in a couple days.
Okay.
Thanks for your
Danny.
time, Charlene. Okay, go back. Now, Charlene, digest it. What were you feeling? What were you thinking? Because you did the same thing Chris did. It was good. It was very real. Because you're like, oh, huh? Who are you? Because again, the minute I agitate the pain about saying, I know you because you have a problem. I'm an agitator.
Right.
I'm an interrupter, and I'm an agitator. So I can't get around that point. So I have to be careful not to get defensive when you say something like, who, what? Who? And you could say it with all sorts of tone to it. I mean, you could be really edgy and really upset, but I have to recognize that my job is to pattern interrupt your life. And again, it didn't sound like there wasn't an opportunity. And I think it's always respectful to the other agent to say, look, I'd just like to be plan B. And what I've sent you is, you've asked me a very good question. Why are you different? Why should I even consider you? Because I have a plan. And it's clear. And it's articulated. Oh, and by the way, it's coming in the mail. Even if you don't choose me, you can use it with your realtor. Maybe it'll help them too. Or maybe it will help you guide your own realtor. I don't know. But what would be really good is if you let me explain it to you while I'm actually in the house looking at the physical product and checking out the very specifics in the individual case that you have. That's the whole narrative behind the scenes that we have to get through our heads, that this really is something that they need. Hey, you've been injured, right? And I don't care whether you know me or not, I'm the EMT, and I have a good plan to save your life. Even though you're yelling at me, it hurts, hurry up, and you're screaming and yelling, take it easy. I got a plan. Let me just show it to you. They start to calm down. But you can't expect that early on in that call, you're not going to get a punch in the nose. Make sense?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, let's roll in some others here. We're halfway through, so if we have some outside sales challenges that rolls into, feel free to bring that up. I had a couple hot mics in Ottawa, so I'll open those up. Guys in Ottawa, I'd love to hear from you guys because you guys stepped in last week while everybody was basically still on vacation for Thanksgiving in the States. If you guys wanted to follow up on the stuff we talked about, I don't know if Steve or Tarek, you're out there. Sorry, I had to mute a couple mics when you guys came in. So let me know if there's follow up from last week, if we can kick this to the outside.
Hey, Danny.
Hey there. Who's that?
How's Pat?
How you doing?
Good, are you?
Good, buddy. You want to jump in on this here? You could take me wherever you want to go. I mean, I'm good with that, whatever role play.
Sure. I mean, maybe do some follow-up role play.
Yeah, sure. That's real good. But let's go there next because that is the next logical step. So give me a scenario and let's go there because what these guys just did was the initial call, but most of the business, as we discussed last week, is going to come from the long run, right? And a lot of people say, well, what do I say when I follow up the next time? Okay, good. Here we go. Tell me the scenario and let's dive into it.
Okay, so let's say, I don't know, I spoke with this person that was looking for a free home evaluation, but they were about a year out. They asked me to call them back in 6 months, so 3 months down the line, I give them a call back.
Okay, great. Ring, ring. Is Pat there?
Yeah, Pat speaking.
Hey, Pat, Danny Griffin calling from Griffin Realty Group. We talked back a couple of months ago, and I know that you're not quite ready yet to sell the property, but I wanted to make sure that you were still getting the sold properties I was sending you from the multiple listing service so you can keep abreast of the market. You still getting that stuff from me?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Excellent. Anything in there intrigue you?
Oh, well, I mean, I didn't realize how many properties were actually selling in my area. I
Yeah.
didn't know it was moving that quickly, but
Yeah.
it's definitely some good information.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is it is still a good marketplace. So I want to just go back and refresh myself in my notes here. It says that you were moving towards the end of the school year because the kids were out of school in June. Is that right? Is that why we're still holding off?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Well, the good news is I don't see anything that's really going to slow it down between now and June. So what I would say is that the other part of this is the reason the houses sell quickly still are that they were perfectly prepared over a period of time. If you go and look at some of these, like see this one on 123 Main Street, I was just looking in your file here. That's right around the corner from you. That guy was in tip-top shape. I'm going to send you the full listing sheet on that one. I want you to go through the pictures of the interior. You can see he was really in buff shape. And that's that whole part of that marketing thing. Remember that free home seller course I told you about and that I sent you? It looks like you opened that up too. Did you get that as well?
Yeah, I got that in my email, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So that harkens back to this thing about conditioning the property. You have plenty of time between now and June to make your house look like that. I don't think the guy did anything extraordinarily well. And I remember the last time we talked, you said you had upgraded the kitchen and the bathrooms. So that's a big deal. But he really had all the nice neutral colors. You can see the property was properly staged. Looks like you could eat off his grass out front. Those are all the things that I want you to keep in mind as we go forward here towards June and that you can really do. Now, I don't know if you need anybody to come out there and price things for you or help you, but remember, we're a resource. We're a one-stop shop. Whatever you need, we can get for you. Make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Okay.
And I mean, I've got a good idea of what the house is worth, but eventually I'll probably want a second opinion.
Yep. Sure. Well, when we get down there, I'm just going to assume that I can get an opportunity to compete for the job. Would that be fair to assume?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I'd love to do is keep you focused on the strategic approach now, because I think that's what makes us unique. Is that by the time June arrives, I don't want a guessing game to happen for you because it's not necessary. As we get a little closer to, I think maybe 2 months out, so we're a little bit further out from that now, what I'll do is I'll make sure that we reiterate the 7 steps here so that as time comes to go, you hit the ground running. So I think that's probably the best next plan for us is that about 2 months out, I get with you. And in the meantime, we might put one more touch on it, make sure that the properties are coming to you. If I see anything that I think is hyper relevant that you should consider, we'll get there. Okay? That makes sense to you?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome, buddy. Well, listen, you have a great holiday, and we'll check in with you about 3 months out from now. Just make sure the property stuff is still coming. And if in the meantime I see anything that you should be paying attention to, I'll let you know, okay?
Awesome, Danny. Thank you very much.
Okay, buddy. Nice to chat with you. And that's it. I mean, there's not much more I can do, Pat, right? Well, like, what else am I going to do? But what I did do was I reiterated 2 things because Charlene asked me a good question. Why you? What makes you different? A plan. So I'm not going to stop selling that plan on the follow-up because that's what makes it unique. I don't want you to believe that it's in your best interest that when June comes, you're going to line up all these agents in a cattle call and that's going to serve you well. It's not. If you're the consumer, it's not. You should be planning. This is the single largest financial transaction you make in a lifetime. If you need math from me so that you understand what you're going to net, that was Chris's whole deal. The guy just didn't know his math. And so he was getting stubborn and he was using the law of corroboration to get stuck. He needs some help with some math to stay there. What he doesn't know is what he could really buy and at what price. So he's backing himself into a corner, probably over a lousy, well, I say it quickly, but a lousy 20 grand because he's just not doing the math. And all he probably needed was a slight tweak on the price. So see, I can be relevant to you. So I reference what I had kept in the notes. One little bullet point, hey, your motivation is not going to be heightened until the kids move out of school, right? The good news is market's stronger than you thought it was. Let's keep an eye on it. I don't see anything that's going to change that. But if I do, I'll give you an alert call. Hey, it looks like things are sliding. I don't know if you could get going a little bit earlier. Maybe we can get a setting, maybe we could start in March and not close till June. You see what I'm saying? So if the market starts to slide, I can give them a real relevant reason to make that move now. So I don't know if we have anybody on your team on the outside sale, but I'd now love to get somebody, take me to an outside sale where we're following up, where now we are really going over personally in person the 7 steps or the seller plan or your plan, whatever it is. Somebody take me there next. Because that was a good follow-up question by Pat. Now we get the appointment. Now what?
Hey, Dan, it's Brian.
Hey, Brian. Go ahead, buddy. Perfect. Love it. Take me there.
Hey, yeah. Hey, we on our one-on-one earlier this week, we had talked about, I had met with the buyer and had gone through the 7 steps.
Yes.
For our strategic buyer plan. And,
Yes.
And you wanted me to.
Oh, I
talk about
did.
that a
Yeah,
little
that's
today.
right.
So
Thank you
this
for.
would be a good point to jump in.
Yeah, this is perfect. So Brian and I have been working on keeping him very strategic in his approach. And I really wanted you all to hear a real live way that this worked. So why don't you give them the background, Brian, and then take them through why you felt that it worked. So he's talking about the buyer strategic plan, as articulated in that simple infographic we share with all team members and their team leaders. So go ahead, Brian, talk about it a little bit.
So I got a call from one of the lenders that we do a fair amount of business with, and she says, "Hey, I've got a guy who I've worked with on several loans in the past, and he wants to start buying a second house. He's going to rent out his current place and buy another one. He's already met with the realtor, but he hasn't committed to him because he said that he just didn't get a good feeling from him, and the guy just sent over the contract and wanted him to sign it and just didn't really spend a whole lot of time with him. So he asked me for a referral, so I gave him your name. I hope that's okay." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to meet with him." So I called him up, and he says, "Well, I'm getting ready to go out of town. I've got just a couple of hours today. Are you free?" And I was already out and about, but I had my iPad with me. And he said, "Yeah, give me about an hour or so and we can meet." And so I wasn't fully prepared going in, but like I said, I had my iPad and I have a digital copy of the buyer's infographic on it. And so we sat down and we chatted, and I just kind of found out what exactly he's looking for, what's most important to him. And he says, "Okay, I've already talked to another realtor, but this time with this house, I want it to be a little bit different than my other transactions because this is a big stepping stone for me."
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "And so I really want to interview a couple of different agents and find out, who's going to do the best job and how it's going to work out. So why are you different?" And so that was just a great opportunity to bring up the buyer infographic. And I said, "Well, we have a plan. And this is just the 30,000-foot view of it. I mean, there's 1,000 other steps that are involved in this thing." I said, "But for what you need to know, we follow this plan. So whether it's a small condo or it's a $1 million house that we're looking for, we always follow the same steps." And so we just walked through the whole list. And this is the first step is a buyer's agency. I understand that we're just meeting each other right now, but in order for us to really start to work and to do the best job for you, we've got to have that agreement and understand what we're expecting from one another. So that starts with the agency agreement. Yeah. And then I just talked about each step briefly, and I says, we found that when you jump out of line and when you skip a step or when you get too far ahead of yourself and you just jump into start looking at properties, what we often find is that you can get what you want, we'll have a successful closing, but maybe there's some frustration or maybe there's some speed bumps or maybe there's some communication that was missed because you didn't set those expectations from the very beginning. So we follow this plan, and it works out well. So we had a little bit further discussion. I emailed him the buyer's agency agreement. He said he was going to think about it for a couple of days, and then he went ahead and signed it for me.
Okay, so let's go back and hit a couple of bullet points. Number one, go a little bit more into the narrative of the 6 points in the buyer infographic. Talk about that a little bit. So you opened it up, you went over it with the guy. Tell me a little bit more of what you said. Give us the the Reader's Digest version of this whole thing. Just give the quick narrative as if it's the elevator speech so that everybody gets a flavor for this, because I want to keep reiterating this week after week on these sales training calls that I think that is the greatest, safest buoy to hang on to. right? I think that introduction on inside sales or outside sales is important. And I think the way to remember what you're doing, if you get lost in scripting even, is they are the hero, they have a problem, you're inserting yourself as the guide, and you have a plan. If you can hear those 4 beats all the time, I think you're well off. So just thinking like that, tell me in the narrative form what you'd say to a buyer in an elevator, even if you don't have the script. Don't try to be perfect. If you have it in front of you during this call, that's fine, whatever you like. But just try to see if we can get the narrative. Tell me a little bit about it.
I told him, I said, we don't, I hate to compare buying a house to making cheeseburgers. I said, but McDonald's is good at what they do because they do the same thing every time. And so we do the same thing every time when it comes to helping our buyers, and it makes for a much smoother transaction. And in the end, you get exactly what you're looking for because you follow the plan. And that was the theme as I walked through the steps.
Oh, great. So now I ask you, okay, so tell me about the steps. So now I say, tell me about the steps. I got a quick minute here. I'm thinking I'm liking what I'm hearing.
Okay. So I said, it starts with representation. We get into an agreement, and so that allows us to do the best work for you. You've already spoken to the lender about financing. Have you gotten pre-approved yet? He said, no, not yet. I said, okay, so that's the next step. I said, it doesn't make any sense to go look at houses if you don't know what you can really afford. That just sets you up for disappointment if we're looking at houses that are out of your price range. So we make sure that we get that step taken care of. And then we discuss, make sure that we're all set on features. And that allows for some flexibility because once you see things in real life versus online, what you think is important to you can change. And so, we're not rigid. We don't lock you in to say, well, this is exactly what you want. But having that top 5 list of important features, of must-haves, we get that all clarified at the beginning. And then, like I said, we do allow for some flexibility. Things change, and maybe you decide, hey, this area isn't what I thought it was, or maybe it's not as important to me to have a 2-car, maybe I can have a single car or whatever. Then we go out and we look at houses, and then we make adjustments accordingly, whether it's price or area or features. We just get a sense of exactly how things look. I said, and so for a lot of people, that's what they feel is the biggest part of buying a home. I says, but there's 2 steps left. There's the negotiation and the closing. Mm-hmm. Now, with negotiation, we want to make sure that we represent your interest to our best of our abilities, mm-hmm. But then also get everything that you need with it, and make sure that something doesn't fall apart because we weren't clear on something. You don't want to lose out on your dream home because I don't return a phone call from the listing agent. Mm-hmm. And then we get to closing. There's still a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot when we get to closing. We want to make sure that we don't miss a step. We don't miss a document that needs to be filed. And so we have a transaction manager, a dedicated transaction manager that follows through with all this. And she's worth her weight in gold because she makes sure that we don't miss any of our dates and deadlines and keeps everything moving along. So that's not my forte, so I hire somebody to do it. To work on your behalf.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, good. Bravo. I mean, it's just a narrative, and I want everybody to hear that. It's just so much easier. And again, it's like swimming to buoys that you can kind of see in the distance. It doesn't have to be this exact thing, because what if he interrupts? What if somebody slows down? What if the guy says, "Oh, wait a minute. So talk to me a little bit about, he wants to deeper dive into something," right? So I think that's what you want to make sure is that when you look at that, that whole thing, you're like, okay, well, wait a minute. This guy wants to talk more about the financing. How do I deal with that? Right? So I think that's where you're at, right?
Yeah. And so it went really well. And that's one thing that he commented on. I mean, keep in mind, I did have the endorsement from the lender that he already had a good relationship with and he trusted.
Yeah.
But after he signed it, he called me up and says, "Hey, I signed it. I really like your plan, and I really like the fact that you don't get too far ahead of yourself when it comes to looking at these houses. Mm-hmm. So let's do it right. Let's get exactly what I'm looking for, and I want you to do it for me."
Yeah.
So it was good.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Anybody have questions about that? Any thoughts about all that? No? No, that's it?
Yeah, hey, Danny.
All right, there we go. My gosh, I got to say, is anybody alive today? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, this is Lisa, and it kind of goes back to the listing one. So I don't know if somebody had one on the buyer side that you wanted to talk about first.
Sure. Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter.
If
Just
not, I've got. Okay.
no, fire away. There's a wide open
Okay,
call.
cool.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So, yes, I had a client that I called through the dialer system and was able to set an appointment with him and went over there and presented, the 7 steps and found out where his problems were with his previous agent and how I could address and fix those. And he really was impressed with the whole plan and how I was talking to him just about selling his house and what his options were.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, where's that fine line of being aggressive enough to get that sale versus really truly listening to them? Because at this point, he had his market on the house for 6 months, and he just needed a break from all of the showings and keeping the house clean and all of that. And so I didn't press him very hard. I left him all the materials, and we have an appointment set for next week to follow up. But I wasn't sure if I had done that correctly or if I should have pushed a little harder. But I'm trying to be respectful as well as also be a salesperson.
Yeah, sure. No, yeah, that's a good one. It's a toughie. You're really in this tough spot here where you're trying to figure this out. So it's without being there, it's very tough to feel it, right? So he liked what you had to say about the strategy. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was a specific plan, and he loved it.
Okay. So you know that because he said it out loud? He articulated it clearly?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes. He told me straight up.
Okay, cool. Great. So there's your unique selling proposition alive and well for both of you. From you to Brian, I mean, there's the buy side and the sell side, which thank you for proving to everybody that it's just so simple to be unique and strategically in the context of being strategically professional. Here's my plan. It's clear. It's proven. No matter how you sell it, you both were effective in getting people to say, yes, I like this. It is different. It gives me clarity. But you know what? He says to you on top of that, I'm burnt out. Right? So I'm all burnt out about this whole thing. So great. Now you listen to him. Take me back in time. Why was he burnt out? But more importantly, what was the motivation to sell? Because if somebody's burnt out and they stop, they probably don't have a super high motivation to sell. Maybe it's an 8, but I don't really see a lot of people that really had to sell not go right back on the market, right? So what was motivating him? And he's now disappointed. Was it a dream? Hey, I always wanted to move to the lakefront. And now I can't because I couldn't get this sold. That's a disappointment. And that's something that you can resurrect them out of that spot with good insight. So do you know why or why not, Lisa, that happened?
Yeah, absolutely. He had raised his family in that home, then got divorced, and now he's a bachelor living in the home by himself. So the house is just too big. So he wants to downsize.
Yeah.
So that was his motivation. And then he had hired a friend's daughter as an agent who was really new in the business, but also had no plan and no experience. And so he sat there for 6 months. They had it priced way too high.
Yeah.
And then, he just got frustrated with the entire process.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So did you feel, because what you're asking for is you're asking for advice as to whether you should have pushed. What do you think would have happened if you did push?
Well, because he had also told me about, all of the other, he said he's talked to over 200 agents, which again, if you cut that number in half, that's still a lot of agents that he's been talking to. He's got guys that are literally sliding contracts under his door with yellow tags like sign here. I mean, he's getting inundated by people.
Wow.
So
that's
thank
bizarre.
him for taking the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ballsy. And when he told me that, I just looked at him and I was like, wow, that's cold.
Yeah.
Just because I was trying to really feel what he was feeling and let him know, like,
Cool.
no, I am here with you. I'm taking the time to develop a relationship with you before I even ask for your business.
Good. I like it because that's why he's burnt out. He's under assault, which is bizarre. Now, here's the danger in this. As time goes on, if you leave him to be sitting there and you know, perhaps, you know, somebody else comes in and makes the better case, or their timing is better, or whatever the case may be, right? So you have to be careful of all of that there's a window there. So what was the time? I don't know if you recall earlier in this call, I was specific about when I would be calling back, and I got a commitment from them that was okay. And again, it was almost rhetorical. I'm not asking you to give me permission to call you back on free information that you know you need. I'm essentially just invisibly selling the fact that I will be calling you back, right? So tell me a little bit about the follow-up from here. Where and did you get that kind of a commitment? So you knew all that, say, look, you got 200 people or so just driving you crazy. I really want to be different. But in the same breath, now here's where you get more transparent. In the same breath, I don't want one of the next people to convince you to relist without me having a shot to come back in and reiterate my strategy. So would it be okay to ask that you please don't list with somebody else without really getting back to me in case your timing over the next month changes? Because I know how this works, right?
Well, and that's a really good statement that I should have used.
It's okay.
And use in the future, because as we left it, he just was like, all right, I want you to come back on Tuesday, and I'll list with you on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So at least that gives him the weekend to take a break from everything. But again, I'm concerned yet during that window, what if somebody else comes and sells him on it? But for follow-up in the way that I'm trying to keep a relationship with him over the weekend, I also found out, he's looking to downsize, so I found out what kind of a property he was looking for, and then asked him if it was okay to set him up with an auto email. And so when I got home that night, I set him up with an auto email, and he's looking for homes or condos. So I decided, as another portion of my strategy, was on one day I was going to send him a list of homes.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I would send him a list of the condos, so that way he feels like every single day he's getting something from me. Yeah. So perfect. I mean, I think that's the whole deal here, is that you need to pay attention to the fact that you've upsold him the insight. But did you say it? You know what I mean? See, let's go back to that moment in time where your vulnerability is when you walk out the door and you felt bad about it after you were gone. I get that. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where you're really saying to yourself, okay, so I have this moment where I have a problem. It feels wrong to push this guy, or I just become one of these other cattle call people, right? That's what happens. Right.
But you can't be soft in that moment. You have to build a fence around you too with him and say, look, all these evil doers of, pounding away. Hey guys, hello, hang on, guys, we're live. Hang on. Sorry about that. We're live. GVD, that was you, bud. I'll come back to you in a second. So the point here is that we want to make sure that you're paying attention to setting yourself up so that you upsell that good person that you are. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay. So what that means is you did it right to a certain extent, but hey, listen, you know what? Here's what you really need to do while you're taking a break. Let's not take ourselves out of this whole situation. Let's make ourselves sure that we're paying attention to what happens here in the market over the next month. So what I'll do is, instead of sitting here asking you for what's what, look, the bottom line is you need to just stay on top of the marketplace. And so I'm going to upgrade that information, right? That's the point. I'm going to upgrade that information. So I'm going to get you directly into MLS so that you get all the properties that sell around you so that you stay in the game. I know you're not ready to relist, but part of that process of being ready 30 days from now, same thing we did in the earlier role play, is I don't want you to arrive at that moment in time and be lost, right? That makes sense? So you have to really push that future moment where, you can, get yourself set up so you arrive back there. But you got to get the law of commitment in here too with this guy. You can't just say, look, at the end of the day, it's okay. I'll leave you alone and off you go without making sure there are landmines for somebody else to blow up, right? That's the key. And that's what you're asking for. And that's
that's where I felt I left a bunch of landmines that can go off.
Yep, right. So okay, so go back and what are they?
Just the fact that literally somebody else could walk through that door and get the listing, or somebody, I don't think anybody else is showing him homes or really digging that deep enough to find out that he is interested.
Yeah.
So, even in a worst case situation, he might list it with somebody else, but I think he'll still come back to me to buy his next home.
Yeah.
But again, all these are big ifs. So I didn't have anything secure, and I won't have anything secure until I go meet with him on Tuesday, where I can push a little harder and get him to sign contracts.
Yeah, well, just upgrade him and say, look, it's okay. I know there's a lot of noise and all these crazy people. What you need is good mentoring. You need a good guide. I'm that person. I'm the person. I want to be the one that guides you here. So I'm the only one that's come with a real plan. People slipping nonsense under your door and all that. I'm the only one that's come with a plan. Okay. And so what I'm saying to you is that's why you need somebody like me, right? That's why you need me.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key point here is you want to make to this guy is I'm going to upgrade in addition to this introduction to the plan. Part of it between now and 30 days out or whenever you decide to relist, let's stay on top of what sells around you, right? You should have never expired. There's a challenge here, right? And we know by looking at this plan, I'm not going to get into right now exactly what it is or isn't because you're not ready to hear it all today, but it's part of that process. I'm going to upgrade your information. I'm going to put you right into MLS like a realtor, like me, and what you're going to do is continue to get updates of properties for sale, period. End of story, right? And now that's coming. And then remember, you want to consider some of these things that I talked about. If you have time and you want to recondition this a little bit, you want to clean up the yard a little bit, we talked about painting this, you should start doing those things. So while you're in there, you're showing him how to improve his position in the marketplace and stay on top of it. 1, 2. But you upgrade him to this is a key point here. You have to upgrade him to that continuity of relationship to protect yourself. And what that is that ongoing flow of information that comes from you. Because now without bothering him, you're in his life. So every time something sells, and you're not manually doing it, you have to sow that net beneath you because you need to, Lisa, get on to the next listing opportunity, get on to the next buyer. This is a very, very hot prospect. So you want to sow the net tightly, but you want to leverage educational emails, the home seller course coming automatically to him. You want to leverage, the most importantly and simplest for every agent is MLS. Use the darn thing. Send the guy sold properties, right? And if he's moving to another place in the area for sales, now you got a double whammy coming to the guy, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think you kind of hit on a really key point. I am always willing to offer the MLS service, but I don't think I'm explaining enough how beneficial. I like your terminology where you're saying that you're upgrading them and you're making them, giving them the same as much information as a realtor.
Yeah.
So if I start to change some of the terminology that I'm using, I think it'll be the same benefit that they're going to receive, but I think their perception of it will be
absolutely right. Wonderful. Brilliantly stated, restated. That's brilliant. That's very, 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 very important to understand. Their perception of who you are when you walk out the door better be the only strategic professional, right? I think. And I think
right.
And I think that's easy to achieve. And these words are just fit into the formula, like you and Brian both beautifully did. You stuck to the plan and you're in the game. Doesn't that feel good? Now just make sure, because you both, and look at my critique of Brian, and Brian, if you're still on, you can tell her what we talked about. What I told Brian was, look, he got through this. And then he said, the only way I'm going to do this, I'm reiterating it not properly, but I'll tell you this. I said to him, look, at the end of the day, why did you ask for a formal buyer agency agreement at that moment in time? And he said, because he wanted to control the situation. He didn't want this guy cheating on him. He's had some experiences. I said, good. Why didn't you have it in your hands then? Well, I don't know. I kind of fell forward. Brilliant. Bravo. Fall forward all the time. He did the 6 points perfectly. He asked for what he wanted, which was a contract, but he didn't have it with him. So the next time he has it with him. He's prepared to go there. Like he said, I only had a digital copy of the buyer plan, but he fell forward and it worked. Okay. And he was so good in articulating that this plan is unique that the guy really had none other like it. So it was easy to go look at the contract. But what I don't like is the guy's looking at this buyer agency contract without him. I would have rather he hit the 6 beats, went through the contract, and then the guy says, I want to digest it, because he would have been able to see any objections and deal with them. Because somebody could have slipped in behind him and said, oh, yeah, well, that's fine. We do the same things too, but you don't need to sign a contract with me. Right? It's good news is this guy was looking for a pro, articulated clearly that he didn't want a problem this time. So it really played very well for him. So I think that's the thing that you really want to pay attention to here, is that you guys, brilliant. Thank you for both coming on these calls, listening, and going out and trying it, because now you're bringing back for the rest of everybody else. This stuff works because people are lost in the digital age. There's too much information. Like you just said, this guy in Michigan's getting bombarded with people slipping stuff under his door. I mean, you've got to insert yourself as the protector, and it's your plan that's going to protect him. I think that's exciting. I think it's well done. Right?
Yeah, definitely. And for Brian, just on the note, I don't know, do you keep a folder of all that documentation in your car? So when you are driving around, you can just run to your car and grab agency agreement and disclosure and come back in the house.
I should, and I probably will. Or I'll just keep a PDF copy on my iPad. And but I think I like the idea of keeping a folder in the car. That way I can just run out and just grab it, and that way I can give them something, and they can feel the comfort of, hey, I can walk through this. But and that's one thing that I said. I said, hey, I want to go through this contract with you, so let's talk tonight and go through it. He had something come up with his kids, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Because I said, I never want to sign something that I send you without me walking you through it.
Yeah, cool. And again,
it wasn't like
yeah, go ahead, guys. Go ahead.
Having a paper copy can sometimes be really beneficial, especially when you're dealing with older people that aren't digitally savvy, and even some younger people who aren't. So I have 2 folders, one for the listing side and one for the buyer side.
Yeah.
And I carry all my paperwork, all my contracts in the car at all times.
Yeah, I totally agreed. I think you all have to remember, we're in a business where I expect you to be able to win a fight on the street and be ready for it, right? Sold signs in your car, sold riders in your car, be infographics, the 2 of them in your car, contracts in your car. Be ready to go. Be ready to do business at all times. So let's leave the call at that. Bravo, brilliant, wonderful. To the 2 of you, thank you for bringing all of this language that we use on the phone. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Charlene, for breaking the ice at the inside sales. Thank you to Pat for bringing us to that follow-up call where we reiterate the plan and the talking of that upsell information. And then remember, when we go in the house and we don't necessarily win it, even though we still are articulating it well, set yourself up to protect yourself and ask for some sort of a commitment. Can I ask that you please, over the next 30 days while you're getting bombarded by these animals, please do not commit to somebody without giving me a chance to win the job? Can I ask that of you? See, that law of corroboration is very important, at least with that commitment. Okay, there's a high likelihood they will not, if they say yes, they will not break their word, right? That's the law of corroboration. Don't forget to use that too. And we'll keep looking for these key terms, like you said, on perception. I'd like to upgrade your information and put you directly into MLS. But the reason for that is not just the language. It's the fact that I'm saying I'm going to upgrade you directly, more directly to the information that matters most through MLS. Stop worrying about apps and this and that. This is direct from the source. The minute it happens, it comes. We're not going to worry about syndication problems, and it comes from me. And you know what that means. Remember I told you what kind of a guide I was? I will continue to advise you for free until the opportunity to truly compete for your the job comes about. All right? So good work to all of you. Thank you. Go out and keep trying this stuff, and we'll see you on the other side next week. Thanks for the work today. See you then.
Thanks, Danny.
Okay, take care, guys.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Thank you. Good work.
You bet. Take care. Nice work, everybody. Thank you online for being here. Appreciate you.